Hey everyone, hopefully you're survived today. Not having a good day, but hopefully you're surviving. My name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. Today we're going to go over the uranium technical analysis update. I'll give you what my opinion is. I've got behind me the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust. We're going to use that to kind of gauge what the physical market's doing. We've got URNM, a whole bunch of different individual companies. We have been breaking to the downside of these patterns. We may have a further pullback ahead of us. I'm not selling anything. I'm in these things. They have good value. We've got our market deficits ahead of us. What we have is a short-term pullback in a big secular bull market. So you have cyclical pullbacks in secular bull markets. I am still a big bull, but we may need to be patient and we may have better buying opportunities ahead of us. So let's dive into the charts. I'll give you my financial opinion. And here we go. So this is the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust. We are breaking to the downside of this pattern. If we hold down here and close, which looks like we are, we could see a further pullback. We'll monitor it. We'll see what's going on. But right now, it doesn't look fantastic for a move higher in the short term. I could kind of maybe do something like this and open it up, and maybe that could work if we get some buying pressure. I'm going to leave it here because we have a lot more contact points here. So right now, I'm saying we're outside of the resistance, so I should say outside of the support of this pattern. URNM, this is North Shore Global Uranium Mining ETF. I've got all my drawings up here. It's all drawn out. What this is a projected move to the downside to the lower portion of the channel if this continues to pull back. Now let's look at some of the candlesticks. Let's look at this area on the right-hand side here. I'm zooming into a 1 year. We broke this pattern to the downside. Oh, let me zoom way in. Let's go to a 3 month. Here's the pattern. We tried breaking to the upside, got basically big selling pressure, bearish engulfing patterns here. We broke to the downside. We've been struggling to move higher, and we are still moving downward. Zooming on in just to give you a little bit more clarity on what's coming on. At least we finished a little bit. Here's this big gap down. We went to sell off, and at least the buyer stepped in a little bit and pushed it a little bit higher. A little bit of support down here. We'll see what happens. But as of the moment, we have broken this pattern to the downside. We have a downside move that potentially could be coming, and the move could be a pretty large move. Projected move could come all the way back to the 60s if we don't get buyers to step in here. Here's Bannerman Energy. Looking at Bannerman. Bannerman. 1, 2, 3. Moving on up. Descending wedge. Breaking to the upside. We came into this other pattern. I would have guessed that we were going to break to the upside, but we did not. We broke downward. The projected move could come back to 14, 15 cents, somewhere in that range down here. We have been coming on back. We had a nice big sell-off today, 8.2%. We are coming under pressure. GoviEx. Let's look at GoviEx. No different with GoviEx. We have these descending wedge pattern, broke to the upside. That's what they're supposed to do. Statistical probability. Coming on down, and we could potentially pull back further. We've got this big wide opening here, which would project downward, probably down somewhere in this range down here. So further downside could potentially be in store for us. Now here's Global Atomic. We are in an ascending wedge pattern. These usually break to the downside and have a pullback. It's exactly what happened. Looking in on this, we've got the downtrend coming up. We tried breaking the downtrend. We had to break this line. We did not break it, and we broke back down. This is broke back down mountain, coming back below the resistance line, and we broke back above it today. So we broke down below it, then we broke back above it. Broke down, broke back. So we'll see what this is going. We've got lots of volatility going on here. Usually when the volatility kicks up, that's when I don't buy. I wait for volatility to calm down, and I wait for a clear bottoming pattern for me to buy into. That's usually what I do, if you wanted to know. Forces Metals getting sold off again, or getting sold off 5% today. Again, we're in this gigantic pattern, and looks like we're breaking that pattern to the downside. Let's zoom in. You can see this break to the downside. We are still in a downtrend, and we could pull back for a little bit. I think it highly depends on what the market sentiment and what's going on in the market, but we are breaking this pattern to the downside, further downside possible. Deep yellow, further downside possible. We've been breaking these patterns to the downside. The whole sector's doing it. I don't see why it would be any different for deep yellow. Now, we've got some support coming through here below it. There's your support line, this big guy down in here. And that's kind of the big picture. Massive support at 37 cents. Good support at 62 cents or so, if this is going to pull back some. Looking at Sky Harbor. Sky Harbor, oh man, it's hanging on by tooth floss. Nobody wants to hang on by tooth floss. Descending wedge, usually these break to the upside and we can move, but not this time. Breaking on down, and we could see further downside. Zooming in on, let's go way in. Looks like we had strong selling pressure. Buyers came in at the end of the day trying to push this back up. But we're probably going to find resistance here at 43 cents if we can make it that high. And we could see a rollover and a further sell-off. The sell-off was quite large with the volume down here, and the candlestick selling pressure was quite big. So this could contract and come back down. NextGen Energy. Descending wedge. I like these descending wedges. They usually break to the upside, but not this time, guys. We're still flopping sideways, grinding sideways with NextGen Energy. We do have a nice, good, well, it had a massive down opening gap down. It tried selling off, but the buyers bought it back up. At least that's good. We had some support buying pressure down here. But again, we're going to have to see what's going to happen. Usually when you break these patterns, they like to break down a little bit. But we haven't broken the uptrend, or I should say the downtrend line on any of these. Canalaska still in a pullback. Good selling pressure today. Big picture, that's what it looks like. We are right at this resistance line of this massive pattern up here. And we're trying to break, and we may come back and pull back a little bit more than what we've done. So I'd say it's further pullback is possible here. Looking at base load, going to the 1 year. Coming on up, we broke to the downside. Big selling pressure, 11.4% today. Again, what I see is further selling pressure. I am not betting on this to come on up. I'm just holding tight, not doing anything. Here's Fission 3.0 Corporation. Nice little pattern here, broke to the upside. We were cruising. We may come back and do a retest on a return move of this line down here even. We could come all the way back. If we do and we start to see this contract and basically find some footing here, I would be a buyer. But not yet. Fission Uranium, given the down 3% today, I'd say that's almost a win. 1, 2, 3 is probably going to come here at some point. We're right at support, and that support is holding at the moment. Cameco getting sold off. We have a massive ascending wedge pattern. We could see further downside here for Cameco. Kazatomprom, 5.3% down today. Again, we've got an ascending wedge pattern. It's probably got more downside ahead of us before we make a move higher. This one, the chart doesn't really come. PenMF, we were cooking 1, 2, 3, looking pretty good, and then we broke to the downside. Then you got to reverse and say this could potentially go lower because we broke this pattern to the downside. So we could potentially go lower. And that's what we're looking on all these. We could potentially go lower. We broke to the downside on Boss Energy. I'll look for more downside. Lotus Resources broke its pattern to the downside. Look for more downside. Here's Uranium Royalty Corporation. I'm kind of busting through these. The projected move is all the way down here at $2.85. from this big move higher. We are finding a little bit of support here. Here recently, it looks like at about a 440. So hopefully we can turn this thing around, but I have to see the turn before I believe it. So the downward momentum and pressure is still on. Looking at Encore, Encore actually has some pretty, big bullish engulfing, and then we got these bearish engulfing piercings. Sold off. It still looks not as bad as the others, but we broke this pattern to the downside. So I would say that we could potentially have more further downside until the buyers step in here and show me they're legit. Here's UU. Again, we're breaking to the downside of this kind of support line here. Further downside is possible here. We do have a nice big bullish engulfing. We could come up and kiss this at 930 and roll back over. So I'm going to be patient here, guys. Patience. URG. You are me? No, URG. Ascending wedge pattern, breaking to the downside. I see further downside for UR Energy. Still in a downtrend. UEC, let's see what we got for UEC. Looks like a shoulder, head, shoulder almost coming. We're probably going to complete the pattern here at any point, which we basically are right now. Zooming on in on the right-hand side, we're still in a downtrend line. It has not broken yet. So further downside's possible, but we have support right underneath us. Here's LEU, Centrus Energy. Shoulder, head, shoulder, and we still have downside pressure. We broke the uptrend line. Here's the big old uptrend line. Here's another uptrend line, and we broke that, and we might have a further pullback move. Everything's kind of pulling back if you haven't noticed. Here's a big Lightbridge, big old move. We could have a return move on the right-hand side here, kind of a shoulder, head, shoulder developed, and we're coming back down. We could potentially head lower. The projected move is around 662 if it gets there. ISO Energy. Doesn't look too bad here. We had a nice good end of day buying pressure here. But and usually when these are downward slanting, they usually break to the upside, but we broke to the downside here with all this variant talk. So we broke to the upside, put in a shoulder, head, shoulder, and sold off. Support way down here, 244, if we can hold down. So we'll find support at 285 and then also down here at 245. Appy Energy is selling off. Unfortunately, we broke to the downside. I thought we were breaking this thing to the upside. It looked good to run at it. The whole sector looked good until it broke to the downside. And we're coming back, and we've got support all through, 29 cents. We got support above here. We're right at support right now. Here's DNN, Dennison Mines. We're cruising on up. Did we break this to the downside? We did break to the downside. Did a retest, and then we broke down even more. I'm going to say it's broke down mountain. Here's our retest, and we're breaking back down. Further downside's possible. Here's Forum Energy Metals. Man, it looks like it's dancing on its support line right now. Let's zoom out. Broke to the upside, and then getting sold hard. Right down to 18 cents. Hopefully we can find some support in here. This is what the big picture view. It could come all the way back down to 6 cents even. If it were to break this trend line, breaking on down, well, we got some good support here at 12 cents. So the next line is 12 cents. And then Laramide. Laramide's breaking down. Looking at this. Reverse head and shoulders, that failed. Broken back down. Man, we just keep failing everything. Get all these nice, good, juicy patterns, and they fail. So more downsides possible here. I don't see the buyers stepping in. So that's what we have for uranium, the overall sector there. I'm still a long-term bull, guys. Totally a long-term bull. Some of them had these ascending wedge patterns. They're all breaking to the downside. We're going to head lower, and until I see the charts change. And that's how I look at these things. And when you look, I know some of these people, some of the people on the channel in the comment section, it's like, Andy, you say lower, 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 lower. What you do when you look at these charts, and if you're looking across a whole bunch of different areas, what you look for are turning points in the charts. You look for ascending wedges, you look for descending wedges, and then you look for the breaks. You look for a break to the upside or a break to the downside, and then you trade that. And what you're basically doing is you're looking from one portion of an ascending wedge, a break to the downside, and then you look for the other turning point. And I will remain bearish until I see evidence that I should be bullish. So I'm going to say lower on the overall sector until I see something in the charts that tells me otherwise. So I'm not going to buy anything. I'm not going to cost average in until I see evidence of a turn. Sometimes you don't see evidence. Sometimes they just turn and move up. Sometimes they put in bullish engulfings. Sometimes they put in broken downtrend lines where they hold above the downtrend line. They start doing bullish engulfings and bullish piercings, which are candlestick patterns, signaling that a reversal is happening. So I'm going to be bearish until I am bullish, and I have to see that turn. If you guys like this analysis, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and thank you for listening. This is Finding Value.